I held up the packs of pizza I bought on my way as I waited for one of my friends to open the door for me. I was the one in charge of the food. 3 of my university friends were inside. We had planned to hang out at Doug's house because his parents were out of town. His house was also really big and comfortable. The 4 of us were kinda close: Doug, Sean, Anna, and myself. Doug was Anna's boyfriend, and their mushiness usually made Sean and I nauseous. We were the single ones of the group, and I was not ready for a relationship. I didn't know Sean's reason though. Maybe he wasn't attractive enough. "Let's play hide and seek," Anna said. I groaned with everyone else. Someone even threw a slice of pizza at her. "What? It'll be fun," she insisted, trying to convince us. Maybe it was the weed, but somehow we decided to go along with her idea. We had nothing better to do anyway. Anna chose to be the first seeker since it was her idea. She said she would give us 2 minutes before she started to hunt us. She stood up and gave Doug a peck on his cheek, wishing him good luck. She turned around, her black hair flipping, and covered her eyes with her hands. When we were sure she closed her eyes, the rest of us scattered in different directions. Hiding shouldn't be a problem in a house this big. Anna would have a tough time finding us. I ran to the basement. It was the obvious choice. That was why I knew Anna wouldn't come down here. At least, not at first. She would think she would regard the basement as too obvious and choose somewhere else. I heard the sound of running feet and covered my mouth with my hands, not wanting to let any sound escape. I checked my phone for the time after a while and saw it was already 20 minutes. I frowned. It shouldn't take that long for her to find us, even if she was checking room after room. I got bored and exited the basement. I walked up the stairs to find Doug standing in the living room, hands on his waist. He turned to face me and asked me if I knew where Sean and Anna were. I shook my head and told him I had been waiting for Anna to find me. Together, we searched the rooms for them. They weren't on the ground floor, so we went upstairs. Doug held up a hand and told me to be quiet. He approached the first room by the left with caution and motioned for me to follow him. I crept up behind him and started to make out weird sounds coming from the room. Wet sounds. The door opened noiselessly, and when Doug entered the room, his mouth dropped open in shock. I peered around him and saw the reason for his shock. Anna was topless, and she was straddling Sean, who was running his hands all over her back. They were making out so intensely that they didn't notice we were there. "What the fuck?" Doug charged into the room and headed straight for them. Anna clambered off Sean, hurriedly putting on her blouse. She called Doug's name, but he was busy glaring at Sean, who remained seated on the bed, looking very much relaxed. Anna looked at me helplessly, and I gave her a look of disgust. Sean grinned at Doug's expression and told him there was nothing he could do about it. Doug roared and leapt on him. Doug was on top of Sean, punching him in the face. "Calm down, dude, it was just hide and seek," Sean said. "That's how you play hide and seek? Let me show you how I play hide and seek," Doug roared. He then bit his arm and tore off a giant piece of flesh. Blood splattered all over the bed as Sean cried in pain. Anna and I were screaming at Doug to stop, but he didn't seem to hear us. He kept biting and tearing off parts of Sean. Sean ran out of the room in just his shorts, panic propelling his feet. Doug ran after him immediately. Anna and I glanced at each other and ran after them. Due to the injuries Sean sustained, he was having a hard time running, and Doug caught up with him. He knocked into him from behind and they both fell down. "How could you?" Doug yelled, punching Sean again. At that point, I was convinced Doug would do something he would regret later, so I went up to him and put my hand on his arm, trying to placate him. Doug stood up and stormed off. Anna immediately rushed to Sean's side, kneeling beside him. She asked him if he was all right, and his response was a groan. I winced at how battered his body was. We heard footsteps, and Anna moved away from Sean fast, but not fast enough to prevent Doug from seeing her by his side. Sean yelled and started to crawl away. I looked at Doug and understood why. Doug had a knife in his hands. Even Anna started shaking. I realized it was more than just friends fighting. I discreetly brought out my phone and dialed the emergency number. Doug charged for Sean, his intentions clear. Anna screamed in terror and jumped in front of Doug, blocking his path. Doug held her by the neck and stabbed her in the stomach. My mouth opened in a silent scream as I watched Anna fall to the floor, hands clutching her stomach. Sean started to beg, even as he tried to stand up. He got on his knees before Doug reached him. He kicked him under his chin hard, and I could have sworn I heard a tooth hit the floor. He raised the bloody knife in his hands up, and Sean peed himself. I climbed up the stairs slowly and put my phone on my ears. "Help!" I whispered urgently. "We're on Allen Avenue, the second house by the left. Someone's trying to kill us!" I was already sobbing. Doug turned at the sound of my voice and saw my phone pressed to my ear. He ran for me, but I was prepared. I was close to the top, so I raced to the top and dashed into the first room, slamming the door shut behind me. I turned the key and locked the door. After what seemed like an eternity, I heard sirens approaching and heaved a sigh of relief. The police found me in the room and led me out. I saw Doug in handcuffs, being led out. Anna and Sean were being wheeled into the ambulance, and I was relieved to see that they were still alive. I didn't check up on them. I had no desire to. Doug had been extreme, but it didn't remove the fact that they were horrible people. Doug was charged for manslaughter, and I testified against him. My parents became worried about how withdrawn I became, but I told them that I just wanted to excel. I knew deep down that I wasn't fine, but I refused to acknowledge it. To the outer world, my life was going perfectly, but deep down, the whole incident left me in a mess.
So, let's just say that I was your average, everyday guy. The type that you'd forget his face or name seconds after you meet him. I liked sports growing up, but the downside to the entire situation was that I wasn't very good at it. Still, I always played basketball with my friends, or my so-called friends at the time. Since I liked going outside a lot, my grades suffered all through high school. Maybe I wasn't gifted when it came to academics as well. My dad left us when I was just a baby, and my mom, well, she had other stuff to do than keeping an eye on me. I don't blame her for where I'm at in my life. Don't get me wrong. But the truth is that she wasn't around as much as other moms. Well, anyway, all through high school, I stunk at school and barely graduated. At the ceremony, they even left my name off the list. I was invisible to everyone, and the friends that I had were two next-door neighbors with whom I lost contact when they went off to college. After graduating, I worked some crappy jobs where I felt belittled and mistreated, but I always thought to myself, it's going to get better. Fast forward to my 21st birthday, I was old enough to drink and go to clubs, but it didn't feel that way. I just got laid off a couple of months ago, and I was basically broke. Not even my mom wished me happy birthday, as she was, at the time, on vacation somewhere with her boyfriend. On that particular day, I decided to order a pizza, but, of course, it didn't come. So, I got my shoes on and I went to the pizza place to speak my mind. As I was waiting for the pizza, I saw a sign in the store that they were hiring. The girl at the counter said that she was about to quit her job as she found something real and called the manager from the back. He was a nice, elderly man that had a calm voice and kind eyes. Wouldn't you know it? I got a job on my birthday. Things were getting pretty good. I started 2 days after that, and it was amazing. Everything was so nice. I was interacting with people, and every customer said nice things about me. I would ask them about their day, remember their names, and the pizza that they liked. It seemed that life took a turn for the better. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel worthless or invisible. 1 year passed in a flash. You know the saying, time goes by fast when you're having fun. 1 month after my 22nd birthday, when my manager made me a cake and brought me to tears, I found out that he was retiring and someone else would take his place. He didn't know that person, but with a smile on his face, he assured me that everything is going to be fine. I didn't take the news well, but what can you do? One morning, just as I got to the pizza place, unlocked the door and went on preparing for customers, I could hear a strange noise coming from the back. It was the sound of heels tapping on the floor. I'm surprised that this stupid place didn't go out of business. Shocked, I turned around. A tall woman with red hair and red lipstick was staring at me. "What are you looking at? Aren't you going to introduce yourself?" she said with her hands crossed over her chest. "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't know anyone was here. I'm Terry," I said while my voice trembled. She was quite intimidating. "Well, you would have known that if you came in earlier," she responded. There it was, my first encounter with the new manager, as she didn't even introduce herself on that day. Later, I found out her name was Janice. The next couple of days were harsh. She began demanding that I come in earlier, and I always left late. Besides being behind the counter and also making pizzas, she made me do other jobs like cleaning the table, mopping up once every hour, and if that wasn't bad enough, I had to make her coffee every morning and evening. Yes, those good old days were gone. She was a tyrant in my eyes, but I couldn't say anything because that was the only job where I actually enjoyed working. I was doing all the work in that place while she just sat around all day in the back, doing her nails and I don't know what else. But one day, I felt like the most humiliated person on the face of the earth. I remember it vividly. It was slow. It was a Tuesday afternoon. She called for me in her office just as I started assembling a pizza. "Teddy, come here right now," she screamed. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Terry, but since she started being the manager, she called me by this other name. The one time that I confronted her so that she could get my name right, the only thing she did was look at me, shocked as if, "Why would you say that?" and stated, "Don't you have work to do?" And that was that. Anyway, she demanded I come into her office. She pointed to a bag in the corner of the room. It was her laundry. She ordered me to take them to the cleaners, and before I do that, another order came my way. "Oh, and clean my coffee mug and make me another. You didn't make it strong enough today. What's wrong with you? How hard is it to make a good cup of coffee?" I felt like a slave. I felt like I was more worthless than the dust I had to take care of in her office every morning. I fell into a strange state of mental confusion, depression, and anger. I did the chores. The day ended and I went home. What am I? Why should I do these degrading things for her? Who does she think she is? I asked myself over and over again. This wasn't the life that I wanted. Who would want to be somebody's errand boy? The next couple of months were even worse. I had to do all kinds of things for her. One evening, she went home, leaving me behind to take care of everything. I was in a state of panic and rage. I didn't think right. I saw her as a monster, and monsters must be destroyed. So I followed Janice. I felt like I was in a movie. She arrived home, and I parked a couple of cars away. I saw that she was living alone, and how couldn't she? I waited so it got late, and without anyone seeing me, I decided to do it. I wanted to go inside of her house and kill her. That was the only option for me. I couldn't take it anymore. Her windows were open, and I just climbed right in. I had a ski mask on and black gloves. I was prepared. Janice was in her living room, drinking wine and cursing at the TV. It was some kind of reality show. So without even thinking, I came up from right behind the couch and wrapped my hands around her neck, choking her as hard as I could. She tried to escape and even let out a couple of screams while she kicked her legs, knocking the wine bottle on the floor and breaking it. I could feel her veins pumping while my fingers were squeezing her tightly. She managed to get a hold of the wine glass, and all of a sudden, I had shards of glass in my face. I screamed, but I kept choking her while blood was gushing all over. Finally, she stopped moving, and I knew I got rid of a monster. Holding my neck with one hand, I headed towards the window, but as I got there, police sirens and red and blue lights surprised me. Someone called the cops. Because her windows were open, a neighbor must have heard the commotion and all the screaming. Police officers entered the house with guns pointing at me. I froze. How could I end up in a situation like this? I was a normal guy with a boring job. I was the person you'd least expect to do what I did. I looked at the blood on my hand. I looked at her body laying lifeless on the couch. I realized the situation. The cops cuffed me and took me to the station right after I heard that Janice was pronounced dead. Yes, that's what happened to that boring 22-year-old guy who made pizzas for a living. You may wonder, what happened to me? Where am I now and what am I doing? I'm writing this story from my cell, where I'm locked up for another 11 years. Due to the glass shards, the left side of my face is paralyzed. You may think that I could have quit my job and nothing horrible would have happened. Well, who knows? Life's crazy that way. I'm not really someone that tells stories. If I were at a party or with a group of friends, I'd be that girl who would just listen and keep to herself. But in life, something happens, and you have to tell somebody to, at least, get that weight off your chest. I was in my second year of studying business management at a highly respected college. I don't want to mention which school it was because, as I said, I'm a private person. Moving on, I was on a break. Summer break, and like all introverted kids do, instead of going to parties and hanging out with friends, I decided that the mature thing to do was to get a job. My dad always said, you have to work hard if you want to make it in this world. As I was walking past a pizza shop that I frequently visited during my late-night cramming sessions, when I needed food and energy drinks to have the stamina to stay awake, I saw that they were hiring. One thing led to another, and there I was, behind the counter with a red apron on, surrounded by the smell of delicious pizza 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I know what you're thinking. Seems like a great summer job. Well, bear with me here. Each day was the same. Regulars would come in, order the usual, and after some chit-chat while the pizza would be done or the slice would be heated up, they'd be on their way. Occasionally, new customers would enter, and believe it or not, that was the hardest part of the job. As a shy person, I managed to get used to regulars and became comfortable speaking to them, but new faces always made me shell up. All was well and good at the pizza place until one horrific evening. I'll never forget that day. It was July 17th. It was pouring outside, and there were no clients except for one elderly man that was sitting at a table, enjoying his pizza in silence. Besides me and him, my manager Teddy was in the back doing what managers do best, watching TV, of course. It was about closing time, almost 20 minutes away to be exact, so I walked away from behind the counter and headed toward the empty tables. With my trusty rat in hand, I was carefully taking care of the crumbs and pepperoni slices that fell from people's mouths. Yeah, glamorous, indeed. As I was doing my job, the bell that was attached right above the door rang. I couldn't believe it. Who'd come by this late, and especially in this weather? But then I remembered. I was their most loyal customer during finals. As I looked up, it was a man. Quite tall, dressed all in black, having the collar of his soaked jacket as high as it could go, while at the same time wearing a black, cowboy-style hat that covered his eyes. All I could see as he walked in was his big nose. "I'll be right with you, sir," I said while he took a seat at a table. I just finished cleaning. Normally clients would come and order at the counter, but seeing that he had already sat down and taking into consideration the fact that I was not busy at all, I decided to do a good deed and take his order at the table. I came back in a flash, and seeing that he was soaking wet with water dripping all over the table and the floor, I told him politely with a big smile on my face, "Sir, you know you can hang your hat and coat on the coat rack behind you." Without even acknowledging my suggestion, he put his hand on the table. I could see a poorly done snake tattoo, which looked like it would have been done in prison. A slight chill went down my spine. After a moment of silence when neither of us said anything, I moved on and asked him what he wanted to eat. "Surprise me," he responded. His voice was low. Maybe he smoked, who knows, but as he said those words, I took a step back in fear. There was something off about him. I could sense it. I quickly turned around and went straight to the place where we stored our slices of pizza. We only had pepperoni and cheese, so I decided to heat up that first slice. That's the one I wouldn't have gotten for myself. A minute passed and I was already at his table, shaking in my boots, metaphorically speaking, as I was wearing Chuck Taylors. As I went to put the plate in front of him, that big hand with the snake tattoo grabbed mine. I froze. I didn't know what was going on. "What's your name, little girl?" the man said while raising his head so we made eye contact. As I stared into his eyes, I felt a sense of terror. That man was up to no good, and without even skipping a beat, I tried to get my hand free while screaming, "Let go!" The fact that I screamed didn't seem to bother him. He just smiled, revealing the unhealthiest teeth I'd ever seen in my life. "The lady told you to let her go," the elderly man said while seeing that I was in trouble. At the same time, Teddy came from the back, hearing all the commotion. "Sir, you need to let her go and leave the premises," Teddy told him in an authoritarian tone, but while he kept his distance, the man kept holding my hand for a couple of seconds more and then he let go. "See you later, Amy," he said while walking out the door. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How did he know my name? I started to freak out, but Teddy calmed me down. "You have a name tag on," he said. I felt like such a fool for freaking out, but nonetheless, that man let out a bad vibe and he ruined mine as well. Seeing that I was distressed and remembering that the man told me that he would see me later, Teddy offered to drive me home. "Come on, it's raining and that creepy dude even gave me the chills. Let me drive you home and make sure you're safe," Teddy kindly said, and I was okay with it. The drive wasn't long at all, but it seemed to calm me down. I went inside my house before I waved at Teddy, and there I was, safe at last, with a tub of ice cream in my lap and browsing Netflix. What to watch, I kept saying to myself while whistling some tune I just made up in my head. After settling on a movie title, I got comfy in the couch. All of a sudden, my power went off. Great. It's raining. No one is going to come and fix it. Maybe I can do it myself, I said while getting up and looking for the fuse box. The bad thing was I left my phone at the shop, and I didn't have a flashlight in the entire house, so I had to improvise and let my vision adapt to the darkness. That didn't work, of course. As I was stumbling on my way back to the fuse box, a strange sound disturbed me. It sounded like the floor creaking. But I was the only one in the house, and the sound came from another room. Now I got scared, and I hid in a dark corner. "Amy, come out, little girl. Why didn't you let me eat my pizza?" Oh no, it was that creep from the store. I'm definitely going to die, I said to myself, as he was slowly walking towards my direction and calling my name while a big knife glistened in the dark. I knew that if I didn't do something, I'm going to die. With each step he took, I remained completely silenced, holding my breath at times. When he got right next to me, I kicked him as hard as I could in his leg, but the man didn't budge. He grabbed me by the hair and he lifted me up. "You're a bad girl, Amy," he said while holding the knife inches from my face. The next thing he did was throw me on the ground with such force that I slid into the wall. "We'll play a game. You run, and if I catch you, I kill you," the murderer said while letting out a creepy laugh. I started running upstairs and he was right behind me. I grabbed a lamp in despair and threw it at his head, breaking it into a million pieces. Of course, the man didn't budge and he continued chasing me. I got into the bedroom and I locked the door while I screamed. Without even skipping a beat, he kicked the door in. He was so strong, I knew I was doomed. There was nothing I could have done to escape. That was it, my time to die. Walking slowly towards me, he grabbed me by the neck and put the knife right on my neck. Feeling the cold blade and the blood rush to my veins, I closed my eyes, hoping for a miracle. All of a sudden, I could hear something. "Amy, it's Teddy. You forgot your phone at the shop. Are you okay?" Teddy said. He was downstairs and saw that I had no power, even though the rest of the houses on my block were fine. The man told me to shut up, as he guided me out of my bedroom and at the top of the stairs, so I could tell Teddy to set the phone on the table and leave. I'm fine. You can leave the phone and go. I want to go to bed," I said, and Teddy did just that. That was it. My last hope was gone. The man took me downstairs and sat me on the couch. "How do you want to die?" he asked. But before I could say anything, he fell to the ground unconscious. Teddy knew that something was wrong and stuck around, grabbing a baseball bat from his car and hitting the guy on the head. While he was unconscious, we called the police and he was arrested after I told the cops what had happened. Later, I found out that several bodies were at his home and other murders were linked to him. The police officer said that I was very lucky that Teddy stuck around, or else the murderer would still be free to this day, and I wouldn't have been here.
The glamorous job of fast food. Well, we don't actually consider ourselves as a fast food joint. Our pizzas are delivered fast, that's true, but because of the ingredients we're using and the techniques we learned from years of experience, makes our pizza place something unique, at least in the surrounding area. But I'm not here to market the business. I want to share with you what happened to me, a simple pizza delivery guy, a job most people find beyond boring. I had just started work at my uncle's pizza place. He was originally from Italy and took great pride in the product that we put out. He never really liked the American version of pizza, but tried to please both the cultures. It was my second or third shift. I don't know exactly the time, but it was around 7 p.m. Hello, Giovanni's Pizza. How may I help you? One of my colleagues answered. Largest, right? Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, ma'am. I knew that I had to deliver a pizza, being the only pizza boy on shift at that time. Jack, you're up, Angela told me. Sure thing. Where is it? I asked her. She told me the address. Yeah, but she sounded pretty weird on the phone. She kept telling me that her name is Mary. I don't know why. Oh, and she wants the largest pizza ever. I guess she wants the family size. So I got the pizza, put it in my bag, and got in the car. After about 15 minutes, I arrived at the location, but something didn't quite feel right. The entire house looked like it was in very bad shape, and it was quite isolated from the rest of the neighborhood. It looked like someone just threw a house there that didn't match the rest of the ensemble. I arrived at the door, I looked around, and then I decided to ring the doorbell. There was no bell, so I knocked on the door. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. I don't know why, but I opened it. Hello, Giovanni's Pizza, you ordered a large? No response. Hello, is anyone here? Finally, someone replied. It was a woman. It sounded like she was pretty old, maybe in her 60s. She told me to come on in and leave the pizza on the dining room table. Don't be shy, dear. Come on in and see if you can fit it on the dining room table. It was a large, round wooden table with its top designed to look like a huge pizza. I could hear her, but not see her. Did you do it, dear? She asked. Yeah, it's on the dining room table. That will be $20. I inform her. Did it fit there, dear? Does it go further than the edges of the table? She asked me. I thought it was a very strange thing to ask. No, it's very much inside the edges of the table, I think, I told her. Oh, really? She asked. She sounded really surprised. The loud boom of the front door shutting startled me. The woman continued to say, How can the largest pizza ever fit on my dining room table? I know the size of it very well. Are you trying to make a fool out of me, or what? The woman said. She spoke in a low voice, breathing heavily. I got really annoyed by her attitude, so the next thing I did was put my hands on the pizza. What are you doing? The voice said. I'm taking the pizza and leaving. I don't appreciate your attitude. I don't need to stand for it, I told her while picking up the box from the dining room table. Then I went straight to the front door, but I saw that it was locked shut. I then demanded that she open the door, but the woman said that I will never leave the house again. Things started getting kind of weird. My heart started beating faster and I felt in danger. I looked for my phone so that I could call someone, but I had managed to forget it in the car. I was screwed. I quickly decided to find a way out myself. First, I took a look at the windows, but they were all shut and didn't open. Come on, open! I yelled while trying to nudge them open. The glass was also foggy and you couldn't see outside. I was trapped inside with no way out. I rushed upstairs to her bedroom and tried to open the window, but no luck. It was jammed closed, just like the ones downstairs. I started to frantically search for a key or something to break open a door or a window, but I stumbled across something else. It was a photo of a little girl next to a giant wooden pizza. The girl stood next to a man. On the back, it said 1964, Mary and Dad. The photo was really old and turned kind of yellow. "This is weird," I said to myself. I yelled again to let me out, but this time she said something. Finally, she responded, but it wasn't the response I was looking for. She said that she doesn't like to be disappointed and that I'll pay for the games I wanted to play with her. "Are you insane? What are you talking about?" I asked. But before I could get an answer, she walked into the room. To my surprise, she was wet. Water was dripping from her head to toe. The next thing she did was beyond my imagination. Mary took out a matchstick and immolated herself. I started to shiver and tried to shout, but no words came out of my mouth. The sight of a living woman burning was unbearable. I passed out. As my eyes opened, I found myself in the hospital. Apparently, a neighbor saw fire and smoke coming out of Mary's house and alerted the police. I later got to know that Mary lost her only parent, her father, at a very young age, which left her mentally unstable. It had been a few months since that incident. I try not to think about it, but every now and then my mind wavers and I cannot help but imagine the burning body of Mary in front of me. I believe I myself need some help to get over this incident, but I have no idea what to do.
I laughed as I opened the door to the pizza place at the end of my street. Elaine, one of my friends, flung her hands as she narrated how an inexperienced thief tried to snatch her handbag. I was laughing because she said she had used her pepper spray on him and he was still rolling on the floor when the cops showed up. The pizza place, Fiesta, had large tables instead of smaller ones like other restaurants. We went to one near the wall. A fat man was sitting there, just finishing the pizza whenever we sat across from him. I scanned the place in admiration. I liked the decor and lighting. Fiesta used soft yellow light that seemed to make everything have a certain kind of glow. Little ribbons were hung from the ceiling, making it look like one just stepped into an enchanted place. Elaine asked me to order the pizza, and I was about to call on a waiter when the man sitting across from us cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said, giving us a tentative smile. "I think you should order a super large pizza. It's the specialty of this place." Elaine and I laughed. We could never finish that, I said. At 21, I had no interest in becoming overweight. It was probably why the man was so fat. I dare you. Let me make this interesting. If you finish it, I'll buy you whatever you want." The man looked at us with keen interest. Elaine and I glanced at each other. The offer was too good to pass up. Between the two of us, we should be able to manage to finish it. I convinced myself it was just a one-time thing so it would have no effect on me. I looked at Elaine again and she nodded. I called the waiter over and I ordered the super large pizza while the fat man gave us approving looks. A few minutes later, our pizza arrived and my eyes bulged. It was really big. It was placed on a large tray and almost took the entire space of the table. Elaine muttered, "Oh crap." I understood why she felt like that. I squared my shoulders and told myself I could do it. I risked a look at the fat man and I caught him smiling as he watched out slightly horrified faces. I took a slice and Elaine did the same. We ate it in silence. I swallowed as fast as I could, giving my stomach no time to determine if it was full or not. I was on my fourth slice, Elaine on her third, when I felt like I was going to throw up. I pushed down the feeling and shoved the rest of the pizza down my throat. I looked over at Elaine. Her face was a bit green and her eyes were glazed over as she struggled to eat the slice of pizza in her hand. The platter in front of us had 5 more slices left. I groaned and I swallowed thickly. I couldn't take any more pizza. I felt like I would burst if I tried to force anything in. "I can't," Elaine choked out. I agreed with her. The fat man laughed, a full belly laugh that had him clutching his sides. I couldn't even summon enough energy to be annoyed. I just wanted to lie down somewhere till the weight in my belly eased. He shook his head and stood up from the table, declaring to us that he had fun watching us try. I put my head on the table and asked myself why I agreed to take up his dare in the first place. Elaine and I managed to drag ourselves out to the amusement of the workers and went to our different homes. I slept off the exhaustion that came with shoving the pizza down my throat. About 4 days later, I went to see Elaine in her place. When she opened the door, my jaw dropped open in shock. Her face was completely swollen and red. Her eyes were barely open amidst all the puffiness. I asked her what had happened and she claimed she had no idea. She said she had been to the hospital and they found nothing wrong with her. They said it was probably an allergic reaction and prescribed some drugs that had no effect. I pitied her and I told her to let me know if she needed anything. On my way home, I was thinking about Elaine's condition when I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I stopped in the middle of the street and people that passed by gave me worried looks. I clutched my stomach and I bit my lower lip, trying to hold in the pain. It felt like my insides were being twisted in different directions. I cried out in pain and my legs gave out. I fell down to the floor, face scrunched in pain. Someone near me called the ambulance. I could hardly hear them over the gritting of my teeth. I was sobbing, the pain was so intense. The doctors performed tests on me and said there was nothing wrong with me. Even as I was struggling to be still enough to listen, he told me that they had to send me home and could come back if the pain persisted. He gave me drugs for allergies and told me I should be fine in a couple of days. After 2 days, I was in Elaine's apartment. We were both comforting each other in our misery. Other parts of Elaine had started swelling up too, and she was putting warm towels to try and stop it. I was curled up on her sofa, groaning in pain. "Do you think it's the pizza?" Elaine asked. I told her I had no idea what it was that made us sick. Just then, a knock sounded on the door. I trudged up to open it and I fell back in shock. The fat man was at the door. "Learnt your lessons yet, girls? When a strange person dares you, you do the wise thing and decline." He smiled at me widely. Elaine made a frightened sound behind me. The man walked away without waiting for any response. I went back to sit down in shock. The pizza was connected to what befell us. How? I had no answers, and I could only comfort Elaine, who was openly sobbing beside me. The next morning, Elaine was back to normal, and my stomach stopped hurting. We never went to Fiesta again, and I developed an irrational fear of pizzas.